There we go. Shit the bed. Right. At least it makes the editing easier.
Yeah. Take 12. Did we
God.
start yesterday?
Yeah. Right. So, got it right this time. Fuck me sideways. Honestly. You can tell I was a bootneck, can't
Thick as mince.
you? I ate the wrong colour crayon this morning. Okay, so welcome back to this is episode 5 of the SLM podcast. Today I'm chatting with Ash Brice, somebody who we kind of met each other virtually in 2019, and I'm sure we'll get into that at some point. But to give an intro to Ash spent 10 years in the Royal Military Police, had a fair bit of travel involved in that. After leaving, he joined the police, got involved in surveillance, counterterrorism, and negotiation, and became the National Negotiator Training Sub-Group. And I shall leave as well. Since then, he's recently left the police, and now runs his own business, Knife Edge Negotiations, influencing and persuading under pressure. And I will leave it at that, and I'll let Ash fill in the gaps because he knows his life story better than I do, and it saves mumbling and talking utter crap. So, Ash, welcome, mate. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I've thank you for having me as a guest. It's
Pleasure.
good. We chat frequently. I've just as in the intro, I've had a fantastic career. 10 years in the RMP, waiting for the booze, the slating. Did some interesting things, met some interesting people, arrested them. No, we had a really good time. I had quite a varied service in the RMP. Really, really enjoyed it. Made some great mates from the RMP and from other units as well. Some of whom I'm still in contact with. Quite a few Royal Marines. Really, really good experience. But then moved on after 10 years. Joined Kent Police. Did a few years down there, and then moved up into Mid Wales. So I was in Dyfed-Powys Police. So I joined the police in 2000, and then retired in March this year. But I've been the director of Brice Brooks Resolutions with my friend who's now living overseas. So that was in November 2021. We started that company, and we're both police. Or were. He's no longer a police negotiator instructor, but he used to run the counter-terrorist negotiation team. I still teach on the UK national team for negotiator courses, which is again, it's a privilege to do. But doing the business now, Brice Brooks Resolutions, and some of the things I do, like you said there, knife edge negotiations is what the subjects we do. We teach companies negotiation skills. We do kidnap awareness training. We do kidnap management training, conversation management, rapport building, mediation. We do all sorts. I've just done a load of work with one of the local authorities about school lockdown protocol training and catastrophic bleed management training.
Okay.
With different companies. Got quite a good range of topics that we'll deal with, but we specialise in negotiations. So the aim is to be the supplier of choice for all tactical and corporate negotiation outcomes, really.
Yeah.
But I've had a fantastic career, highs and lows. But I think the high point for me was becoming a negotiator, doing my course up in Scotland, I think it's 10 years ago, doing the course there, meeting amazing people, getting through that course, which was really difficult.
Yeah.
Because you have to lower your guard, but there's an awful lot of emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, but it's developmental. You don't go. There was a lot of screaming and shouting initially just to put the frighteners on you, but then the structured lesson plans and everything just makes you realise how to deal with people and win people over without making them feel bad. Which my company, those transferable skills now, we give to businesses about going into business deals, getting what you want, but not making your opponent feel like a loser, feel
Yeah.
like they've lost something. So we teach the structure of sales, pitching, getting the maximum yield out of conversations, winning people over, improving your performance, team building, so we do immersive training days and, the kidnap awareness training and things. It's fascinating and I absolutely love it. I go to bed at night every day. I feel like a child on Christmas Eve. I absolutely love doing this and helping people learn from my mistakes is brilliant, because I wish somebody would have taught me all of these things, and it's a nice position to be in. If somebody says, can you help us with this? And just go, yeah. We're not giving away sensitive tactics or any of the police tactics, with firearms or CT work or anything like that. It's just how to win people over, how to influence them, how to persuade them to do things. And
Yeah.
then basically it's the pitch and the close for sales, isn't it? But
Absolutely.
yeah, really, really, really good. But I think I'm one of the lucky ones. I left the police. I'm not bitter. I had a fantastic time. And I look back at it and it's given me all of these skills that I've taken into business.
Yeah.
Can't slate an organization that there's good points and bad points about everything. I don't agree with everything that they do, but you don't have to do everything that they say.
Well,
Sometimes it's just, I was always asking, why are we doing this? Because sometimes you just, why? That's pointless. If you don't do something for 3 months and nobody notices, it's clearly pointless, wasn't it? So just don't do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I loved it. Met some amazing people, and I think the highlights for me were obviously doing the surveillance work was brilliant. Informant handling was fascinating and real eye opener. But then when I got the opportunity to do the negotiation course, which at the time was only open to sergeants and above,
Okay.
and some of the forces were still inspectors and above. But your rank doesn't make you a better communicator at all. And now, thankfully, I think most, if not all forces now, if people have got the skills and they pass the assessments, doesn't matter what rank you are, we need negotiators, or the police needs negotiators, and the public need negotiators. So you go through and you do that. And it's fascinating. It's not for everybody. There's quite a high failure rate on a lot of the courses.
Hmm.
But most of it, I say failure, it's not often people failing. They're not meeting the required score level, because we've got to be able to sign people off after a 2-week intense course to say that I would say that you're good enough to save a friend or relative of mine who's in crisis on a bridge, or
Yes.
who's at a hostage. Because if there's, and I think it was what I was taught in Scotland, if there's any doubt, there is no doubt. You can't let a firearms cop through firearms training if they hit the target, 50-50 will go. You've got to be able to perform under pressure when it counts.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. So there's a very strict marking guide, and there's lots, and it's people are on development plans as they go through. There's one-to-one training. Because we want people to get there, but so it isn't for everybody, and a lot of people take themselves off the course. There's more withdrawals than there are failures, because people realise that it's not for them, and a lot
Yes.
of people can't take or wouldn't like to have the pressure of what you say next could save or end a life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big thing, and it's not just us that do it. You think it's counsellors, you think it's charity workers, it's members of the public on bridges, talking to people before specialists arrive. It's a big thing, but you know, you look at the percentages of people that are saved by non-specialists, it's really high, because you know, that human connection,
Yes.
when the pressure's on, a lot of people will spark, you know, and do stuff. You see the extreme bravery, don't you? You get with people with no training or experience, have done things, you're like, well, where'd that come from? Oh, I don't know. Superhuman strength, you know, when the pressure's on, it's you know, the mind and body is fantastic what it can do, but also when it shuts down, you know, and you know, if you're somebody that knows their limits and will say this isn't for me, then hats off to you, because I think it's quite a brave step, isn't it, to admit that something isn't for you.
Yeah, because you know, ego and pride and all the rest of it often get in the
Yeah.
way, don't they? So
You know, I think I've got a lot of respect for people that have done anything like that and then said, oh, it's not for me,
yeah,
because it takes an awful lot to admit that.
and you're
But
never going to know until you actually do it.
yeah, you see quite a lot of it now, and I think the negotiator course is one of the few pass or fail courses left. You know, there's obviously quite a lot in the military and in the police still, but you know, we don't print the certificates off at the start of the course. It's, you know, you can
Yeah,
see people, as long as, yeah, we teach people on day one certain skills, and at that night we test them on the skills that we've taught them that day. The next day we teach them more things, and we test them on day 1 and 2 things. Then
yeah,
we teach them more on day 3, and we test them on the first 3 days of learning, if you like. And then once we've taught you everything, there's so many development opportunities within the course, you know, and it's long days, and the pressure's on because there's nowhere to hide. You know,
yeah,
when you're the number one negotiator in front of an audience dealing with role actors who are putting the pressure on, you've got to perform, because
yes,
you're being scored, you're being graded, it's all recorded, you know, for transparency, uh, to show that we do things properly. And and the feedback as well. The feedback is direct. It's not the directing staff. You'll just say, "Oh, could have done this. How do you think it went?" You'll get it from the role actors. If you say something that they don't like, they'll tell you quite bluntly.
yeah,
That you'll see, and you've got to be able to be. I think cognitive flex is probably the best way of doing it. If you've got a high level of your cognitive skills and abilities are high, that's what people are looking for. Can you think quickly? Can you come up with novel and creative ideas under pressure? Can you do that? That's what you're looking for, because scenarios change very quickly, and you've got to be able to go with it, and not all of it. That, yeah, there'll be a negotiation strategy when you're dealing with incidents that the coordinator will have, but sometimes you'll go off on a tangent like this conversation. It just goes off,
yes,
and then you try and steer it back, but you've got to let people chat and do things. But no, it's brilliant, you know, and I absolutely loved what I did. You know, it was all, my big passion was negotiating. So before I left the police, so 2.5 years before I left, I started this company with my business partner, and we've been doing training and work, and you and I, we both did Hugh Keir's podcast, didn't we?
yes.
Way back when, actually. So yeah, but that's where I first heard your name. I think you were 2 or 3 behind after me,
Something like that. Yeah,
and then I saw you on. I looked you up, and then saw, because you'd mentioned Icarus, and I looked you up on Twitter as it was, and then I
yeah,
sent you a message, and I was an on-call negotiator that night, and I was on a late shift, and I think I sent you a message on Twitter, and you responded within 10 minutes, and then phoned me up, and we were on the phone for about an hour and a half, and
yeah.
I remember I had to end the call because I got called out to somebody,
That's right. Yeah,
and then, you know, we dealt with that incident. I phoned you back, and it was just weird, you know, because we've got the same outlook, I think, uh, looking to do the same things, both with different backgrounds and different experiences. So, but we've been in touch ever since. And I remember
yes.
one of the first editions.
Yeah, and you had a good result with that as well, didn't you? Just sharing
Yeah, yeah,
with some of your officers.
yeah. We've had. I was talking to because one of my friends dealt with an incident and was affected by it, and I'd not long read your book and just said, look, and we just talked through things and just uh, this is a natural reaction. This is it, and I opened up about my own experiences,
Yeah,
and you see, he dropped his guard and just saw that it was acceptable to do that, and and you don't get over things overnight, do you? But
no,
it was just that maintaining the sort of contact, chatting through things, and realizing that that life isn't fair, the goalpost moves, and things don't always go your way. But helping, with resilience and realizing how mentally strong people are and can be with a bit of help. So it was nice, it was a different kind of thing for me because I was used to, a lot of crisis incidents where we're called out. It has to meet a certain criteria for negotiators to be called out. It has to be a high risk with an immediate risk to life.
yeah,
Is the call will come in and a police operations room will say, no, the risk isn't. There's a flow chart in most of the control rooms as to when you would call the coordinator, and the coordinator would be contacted by the um, the inspector or one of the senior operators within a police control room. They would call the on-duty coordinator to say, look, this is the message that's come through. This is the circumstance. And they go through a briefing document that we've given them.
yeah,
And they say, can you deploy? And the coordinator says, yeah, we'll do this. And then they call out, they'll have two other negotiators on call covering the area. They'll have a primary negotiator and then a second. And then they'll come up with a strategy and they'll deploy, and they'll deal with it. And then the more negotiators we have, then you'll have telephone contact with people, or it'll be text or social media,
hmm,
but then we'll actually deploy face to face as well.
yeah,
We've done a lot of training. We did training for our force, for the call handlers, about how to deal with people. And a lot of the time we'll turn up to jobs, or they'll say, one of the uh, call handlers is dealing with this person in crisis. Well, if they're doing well and they're going on, we'll just give them guidance, because if they've got this bond and they've got this rapport, then me stopping that to take over as a specialist can sometimes ruin it or set it back.
yeah,
But they'll know there's that support, and then at appropriate time they can introduce us, and then we can take over, and there'll be like an overlap, like a handover.
yeah,
They'll stick with us, and then go on, because sometimes if you just say, I'm going now, here's John,
yeah,
he's a negotiator, and then they just like, I don't want to speak to John, I was just speaking to whoever the operator was,
yeah,
and you've potentially lost all of that ground that they've gained. You can reset it, or you can completely lose it, because they may not want to speak to you for whatever reason, And I've had people where you've had to admit sometimes, well, I'm not the right person for this. I'll bring my colleague in. How about that? Because they've got something that I haven't,
yeah,
and admitting that they're the best one to speak to. But not all of the times. You don't always have that option, unfortunately,
no,
which is where you've got to be humble, and you've got to say, I realise that we may not get on, but this is what I was trying to do. I apologise. If it does, and you cap in hand, an apology and a bit of conversation management and a bit of knowing how to your interpersonal skills and rapport building, and using some of the models that we teach, can suddenly win people over. So if you've got somebody who's controlling, then if you're not submissive, but if you're humble and seek guidance, there's a difference between being humble and seeking guidance to being submissive, isn't there? So if
very
you
much.
apologize to someone who's controlling, and you cap in hand and say, I'm really sorry, when you said that, I thought you meant this. My mistake. It's very hard to be annoyed with somebody who apologizes and somebody who's polite. And the easiest way, as we said in take one, if I was ever, if I was ever to write a book about negotiating or how to win conversations, or build relationships and build reports. Be kind and don't be a dick. I
Yeah.
should be a patch. So if
Yes.
there's any people that make patches, I think that'll be a good one. But
Don't be a dick.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, just, be kind and don't be a dick is one of the things I say to people on the negotiator courses. You'll realize, and it'll take 3 or 4 days for people to get their personality back on one of our courses, because they've got this body armor on, and I'm a cop. I don't tell you about myself. When you drop your guard and you show a bit of vulnerability, it's amazing what you can get back from that. I think one of the negotiator sayings, give a little, get a lot.
Yeah.
If I don't tell you anything about me, you're not going to tell me anything about you, are you? So it's just going to be a hostile conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's, how do you manage that? What do you say when people start getting a bit too personal with digging in, looking at your background, wanting to find out what makes you work? But you've got to be prepared for that. So yeah, it's that. But I think a lot of people as well that you deal with, the broken people who've got some baggage are often the best negotiators. I think because broken people fix broken people.
Yeah. Well, there's a huge crossover between the negotiation piece and the therapeutic world.
Hmm. And you've been through a lot of stuff yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, more than some, less than others, I would say. Yeah.
And likewise, but to you and your own experiences, your lows are your lows, aren't they? Somebody may have been
Yeah.
lower, but it's their life experience and everything. But I think, I didn't realize this, and I actually opened up on my negotiator course, and I realized, I saw the impact of it, because it just stopped, and a role actor just looked at, I think looked at one of the directing staff who was guiding them and just went, go with it. Because I just went, oh, we're not getting anywhere here. So I just told them something about myself, which I'd never told anybody.
Yeah.
And it was just weird. The results were natural results from a role actor. And then I remember I was behind 2 firearms cops, and I had another negotiator behind me, and I was sort of behind 2 ballistic shields with firearms cops, and I remember doing it. And then one of the guys turned around and went, was that true? I was like, yep. Oh, moving on. And we continued. And then in the debrief, the guy said, oh, I didn't know what to say when you said that, because I just wanted to stop. Because he felt bad. And he just said, oh, I couldn't burn you because I felt sorry for you because what you'd experienced. And he said, I'm just reading
Yeah.
it. He was reading a script, or had a loose script to follow for where the role play was going.
Yeah.
When you said that, I just didn't know what to do. He said, I would have come out. I would have come out and just, no, I don't want to argue with this guy. Because he
Yeah.
just, I felt a bit sorry for you, and I just wanted to hear your story. And then when he was talking to me about it, he just came out and was like, ugh. And in the debrief, and all of the directing staff went, that, give something of yourself and look at the results. And it's horrible, because you can, and it's quite therapeutic yourself. I don't do it on all of the conversations and all of the negotiating jobs. You say, it's not top trumps, is it? But it's that emotional intelligence about when to disclose something about yourself that may assist in showing somebody else that we're not all perfect. We've been through stuff, and if I can get through it, then you can get through it.
Yep.
It doesn't work for everybody, but when you get somebody, I'd said, I think it was in the first take, about if I ask you to think of your favorite teacher, you think of a favorite teacher very quickly, because
Yes.
they listened to you, they made you feel, they valued you, and they tried to understand you. And if you, as a negotiator, listen to people, you make them feel valued, and you try to understand them, other people haven't done that. And the aim is always to get somebody to say, I like you, you're different from all the other cops, you get me. And when someone says that, you think, I'm onto a winner here.
Yeah,
Just that
absolutely.
you then have to take your time to then use your influence and persuasion skills. So it's all, the weapons of influence, Cialdini's principles.
Yeah.
So using that, and the biggest one I think is that unity. The um, shared lived experience. You and I get on. We're both veterans,
Yeah,
and when you're in the military, there's inter-cat badge, inter-service rivalry, isn't there?
just a bit.
But when you leave, when I see a veteran or somebody wearing a veteran's badge, I don't really care what. I just go, oh, we've got something in common.
Yes.
And you go over and you chat, and you don't know them at all, but there's that commonality, isn't there? There's that shared lived experience where we've both been through some stuff different,
Yeah.
but there's a bond. And if you think of, we use remember the old FBI model, because you've lectured on the FBI negotiator course, haven't you?
Yeah. I did the course. Yeah. I mean, I'm chat about the comparison of how they correlate. I think would be an interesting conversation as well. So yeah, keep going. Sorry.
But in the behavioral change staircase model,
Yes.
you remember the one from like 1973, isn't it? Where the original, you do your introductions, empathy, your rapport building, and influence and persuasion. Oh, where everything comes in about actually making people change their mind
Yeah.
and changing their behavior. And I think when you get this, and I've dealt with jobs of people who are veterans, and they'll say something, they'll say, oh yeah, and blah blah blah, something about scoff. And you go, "Ooh, scoff? What? Said you're ex-military. When you said scoff, that's usually an army term, you know. Oh, yeah, yeah, were you in? Because they're hunting for commonality as well.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, yeah, I was in this. And then we have the banter, and it's always that, monkey this, monkey that as R&P. But if you can laugh it off, and again, humanity, humility, and humor, the three hums of negotiation, really,
Yeah.
leadership, all sorts of things, humanity, humility, and humor. If you've got those three hums, if you can make somebody smile or laugh, chances are you've got your foot in the door of
Yes.
trying to win them over.
You've changed their state.
Yeah.
So
And that's what we did. We chatted about the immediate care process. When you change somebody's thought process quickly and they go, oh, it's that step back, perception versus perspective, isn't it?
yeah.
This is what I think of you, but if I put myself in your shoes, my viewpoint is completely different. And then I said, well, I don't understand what you're doing or why, but I can see how you've got to where you are
Yeah.
because of what you've told me that you've been through. So when you've got this lived experience, so when I'm talking to a veteran and there's that bit of banter, and I'm thinking, this is now the little bit of hope. I chuck the spark of hope in. And to credit Kev Taylor, my friend who runs another negotiation company, we negotiators offer hope to people that haven't got any, and we offer life to people that don't want it. So you
Yeah.
give somebody hope and something to hold on to. And like you'd said in take one, it was a spark of hope, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That warmth. All we've got to do, if you think of somebody as like a seed, we just plant the seed of hope and a little bit of warmth and light, and we just drip, drip, drip. That you see something start to grow, and you can see the
Yes.
hope growing within people.
Yeah.
That sounds really naff, doesn't it? It's quite
What
scripted, but
it,
warmth,
what
if
it
you're
is.
warm and compassionate, it's amazing what you can achieve to people who haven't experienced, they've experienced negativity, people that don't listen to them, people that judge them. And if they say, I like you, you're different from all the other cops, you get me, because you've planted this seed. And if you've got this veteran who's now got something in common, we've got rapport already. And that's that little bit of hope. You and I have been through some stuff. It was different. You tell me about what you've been through. And there's that reciprocity, with Cialdini about, I'll tell you something about me. You tell me something about yourself, give a
Yeah.
little. And And you see all the models, and they just fall into place like Tetris, and you just
Yeah.
think, how did that happen? And it's just things slot into place if you've got the cognitive flex to move the pieces and see where they go, and just think, oh, but it takes time, and you've got to earn the right. That I think the problem we have with a lot of our negotiations is people try and solve problems too quickly. Oh, I know what you need to do. You told me this. You need to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Just the same as everybody else. It's, you
Yeah.
know, if somebody says, I'm going on holiday, we automatically go, where are you going? Whereas we should say, holiday, tell me more. Because they could then just say, well, I haven't been on holiday for this long because last time I went, this happened to me. And I'm
Yeah.
going to this place because it's significant. I go, significant? So you're mirroring language, and you just go, significant? Yeah, it's significant to me because when I was a child, because no one else has done that. They've all taken the conversation on your own agenda of, I you said, oh, you're going to Tenerife. Oh, I went to Tenerife. I'm going to tell you a story about my holiday. I'm going to talk about me. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. You've got to just hold your tongue and just go mirror their language and go, you know, it's it's significant. Why? Or significant. That's interesting. Yeah, it is because of this, that, and the other. And they'll say, blah, 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 like my mum. Your mum? Yeah, yeah. She's done this and this, and this. And you just, the conversation goes where they want it to go.
Yeah.
And then while we're doing that, we'll be looking at people's values, their beliefs. They're looking for their emotional hooks and levers about what makes them tick as a person.
Yeah.
And it takes time. And then when you've done all of this, you start when you're trying to influence somebody. If you've got all of this ammunition and you've got all of these emotional things written down, and you can make sense of it, and you start going, oh, the intensity level of this thing is really high. That's important. This bit's low. And you just start moving the conversation around, getting the information, and then starting to reel people in. And I always get the mick taken out of me. If you've got some figurative, if you've got somebody in a water and you're in a rowing boat and you've got multiple fishing rods, if you get one emotional hook into someone, you can pull them to the boat, but you can't pull them into the boat with one hook.
Yeah.
Because the line will break or the hook will straighten, and they're just treading water. But the more hooks you get into somebody about their family, their finances, their relationships, their pride, their status, all of these things that you found out, they've got all these hooks in them. You can just lift them up. It's a sort of shared weight, isn't it? And you
Yes.
can let that person out of the water into the boat. And I get mocked for that all the time on the course. Like, oh, here we go again. But it's an easy way of saying, you can pull somebody in with one hook, but it needs to be a strong line and a strong hook, and it's going to be a haul. But if you've got a spread load of all these hooks and levers, you can get people in. You're thinking, oh, that was easier. And that takes time, and it takes experience a lot of the time, and it
Yeah.
takes confidence to actually take the risk. Some of it's an educated gamble, isn't it? When you paraphrase something, you go, from everything you've told me, it sounds like, or it seems like, it looks to be, and you take that. And if you've been listening, even if you're wrong, someone will go, well, at least you listened and had a punt. You were wrong, but they'll correct you.
Yeah.
And then you do your apology and you go, oh, sorry about that. When you said that, I thought you meant that. No, no, no. But I appreciate that you've done that and that. And they'll tell you more. So they're leaking
Yeah.
all this information. So sometimes a well-timed apology draws more information from somebody, and then you can start controlling the conversation without them feeling like they're being manipulated.
Yeah.
And this is where my business goes into sales, is that you can achieve high yield in sales through your pitch and your close without making your opponent, if you like, or your client feel bad. They've
Yeah.
done something thinking it was their idea, but actually it was their only choice, because you've cut off all the other options and you've got these hooks into them. and they're going, "Oh, it's good because you've told me this, and you've done this because you told me this," and and it's amazing when you see it happen, and to do it and to be in a privileged position to do that and save somebody is just epic. We may not, and we are a sticking plaster. We can fix them there and then, but it's up to specialists afterwards, and it's the aftercare. I can get people off bridges. I can get people out of water. I can get people to take firearms out of their mouth, but take knives away from arteries, veins, whatever. But we are a sticking plaster.
Yeah.
Aftercare, it's the specialists. Because we generally disengage, which is quite hard to do. Because I've been on some really long negotiations, and you give a lot of yourself because you've got to buy into it. Because if it's a high pressure environment, if you say the wrong thing, it's there, and often we're the last thing, the last tactical option for the police. Even though now things have changed, we're very high up on being called out as a sort of a tactical option. But you go there, and it's good now. We've worked with a lot of firearms teams, and there's a change. The firearms teams, a lot of people want to use all of their skills and their toys, but I've seen over the years the improvement in their negotiation techniques, their methodology, how they deal with people, and it's good. And we worked really well with them, and we worked close with them. But there is, I remember when I first started, we were the oxygen thieves or the air thieves or the bore squad.
Yeah.
Because here they go, they're going to drag it out. Because that was our job, was to resolve it, but not force it. It was, and time. And we've got all of the things, about we're trying to do things and buy time, save life, gather information and intelligence. But you've got the other factors involved about overtime costs, cordons, the amount of staff that are involved in cordons for firearms incidents, if it's a big job, the amount of resources needed, the other demand for police related calls, how are you going to meet the demand and expectations of the public? It's a tough thing for a commander to do, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, there's a lot to take on board.
Yeah, and that's why we've got negotiator coordinators that link in with them and give the strategy, the advice, and they guide the negotiating team. But I think it's always getting better. There's always room for improvement, but there's always mistakes made, isn't there?
Yeah.
And things don't always end nicely, unfortunately. And it's that time. But I think seeing over the years that I've been in the police, seeing the improvement in training, but also the improvement in the care for officers involved and their families involved in traumatic incidents, trim, all of that. But I think there's a lot more to it. People aren't as guarded as they once were.
That's true. That's a definite change there. People are more
but it
willing to be
takes a
open.
long time, doesn't it?
Oh God, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But I went on quite a long time there, didn't I? You have to
That's right. No, it's good. But you mentioned take one 3 times, and I suppose I better give some context to that, where I screwed up. We spoke for about 20-25 minutes in take one, and I hadn't hit record. So hence this is why this is take 2. So yeah, schoolboy error. And the first, it was bloody good as well. It was some good stuff came out of that. So it was
it's much better than this one.
This one's crap.
Yeah, I mean, like we've spoken, we both did huge podcasts, didn't we? Back 2019, 2020,
something like that. Yeah.
When we got in touch, and we've been since then. I got your book, used it within a week of getting it with success at work. I refer to it. I'm going to reread it because I've slept since then.
Yeah.
There's a finite amount of space in my head for stuff. If I put something in, something else will fall out.
Well, I'll send you an updated version because there's been an in
This
fact,
one's handwritten. I think this is the first one.
it was, pretty much.
Uh,
But there's some stuff we can chat about after this that I think might be of interest to you. So, yeah, I mean, I tell you what, I was so chuffed when you got in touch with me after and it was only that first technique that you kind of used, wasn't it, with that?
yeah, but I think a lot of it, again, is just showing that. I think it was talking about things that I'd been through,
Yeah,
um, and just getting the guy he went in his garage and just talked to himself.
yeah,
I just said, go in there. I said 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. I said, it may sound weird, but when your inner monologue says something, your brain seems to react differently to when you hear something being said.
yes,
So I said, well, if you speak out loud and you say something, I wouldn't profess to be an expert in that. I said, but it seems to work. I said, so you hear people and you see people talk to themselves. I was competing in an event in Snowdonia 2 days ago, and at one point, things were getting across. There was like a 7 peak race as a team of 4, and I chatted to myself a couple of times. At the
yeah,
point of giving up, and it was the same kind of thing of no, you can't do this because of this, because of this. And when I heard myself say it, the distraction as well, because I looked down thinking, oh, I've just moved 200 meters further up the mountain, and I didn't even feel it because there was that distraction as well.
yes,
Um, but it focused me on something else.
yeah.
I was feeling physical pain, but a chat completely switched that off through whatever. I don't know how the mind works, and you do, but I still read. I've recommended your book to so many people, and and I think it's helped so many people anyway. And the feedback that you've had from your book has been fantastic, hasn't it?
It has. I've been absolutely delighted with what people have said about for their own personal use, and people who've like yourself, you've used it with other people as well as practicing on themselves, and it's a nice place to be where you can actually offer something that people use and find benefit from, which is that's the whole bloody point of it. It's
Yeah,
like being a negotiator is the whole point is to help people, isn't it?
yeah, and it's a feeling that you just can't explain it. When you just through learning from other people and taking so much information in, and then realizing, with all of the models about, Cialdini's principles, or the weapons of influence, the behavioral change staircase model, about rapport building techniques, all of these things, and you go, like the hierarchy of needs and all. When you
Yes.
cater for somebody's basic needs, it's amazing what you can get back from them. And then when it all comes into place, and you just think, flipping it, and somebody steps over a barrier and comes to speak to you,
Yeah.
and you go home, there's no feeling like it. And it's such a hard thing to do because you do think about it a long time. You don't just, but you're like, oh, and it is, you get a buzz from it, which means that you want, and you don't ever want people to be in crisis at all.
No.
But because of how it made you feel, it gives you even more passion and more motivation to go to the next one to help them. And
Yeah.
I've used examples of other people, and you never say, oh, I know what you're going through. I understand, because you know what the feedback's going to be straight away.
Yeah.
It's like someone being told to calm down. In the history of ever needing to calm down, has
Yeah.
being told to calm down ever calmed anybody down? It just, there's things you don't say.
Yes.
We do it on the courses. Somebody says, I understand what you're going through, and you're just thinking, here we go. And I'll just write it down as the development area straight away. And the role actor, before I've even finished writing, is screaming, you can understand. Have you ever done it? Oh man. They've just done their own legs
Yes.
because you don't understand. You can, and this is that perception versus perspective, isn't it? About, I don't understand how you feel, but given everything that you've told me, I can see how you've ended up where you are. You told me this, and then you give them the background story and you summarize it, and they add more detail, which gives you more information for these emotional hooks.
Yeah.
You start using your sense making and think, oh, I'll use this, I'll use that. And at the right time, you then start feeding it, when people are getting away from you and they say, but what about, and what about your daughter? Who's going to walk her down the aisle? You said this, that, and I know that you're a proud man, and you start tugging on heartstrings,
Yeah.
that hope, and it's that a vision of the future. Because we use a lot of priming language as well, about there's a difference between if you come over the barrier to when you come over the barrier. When you come over the barrier, do you want me to walk you to that ambulance over there? So just by saying that, people will visualize going over the barrier and going to that. Whereas if I say if, they probably wouldn't. And you say to somebody, think of a picture of Marilyn Monroe. Chances are people were thinking of the close-up face one or the one of her over a vent.
Yeah.
I didn't make you do it, but just by me mentioning, think of a picture of Marilyn Monroe. Derren Brown, you watch Derren Brown about how he makes people think of things, change them through all of the things that his placement and his timing to influence people subconsciously, is that there's a bit of that in what we do about starting to lead people down the way that we want them to do. We sort of push people down to the direction we want them to be, to go down, but not making them feel like they've been forced that way.
Yeah.
Because if your emotions are high and somebody says, don't do that, you'll do the opposite, won't you?
Yeah.
You then push back. People won't buy into it at all.
Yes.
No, it's but I think I learned quite early on about giving a bit of myself. The reciprocity, wasn't it? Through
It's essential, but it's weird because in a world where we're increasingly connected in so many ways, we're isolated by default through technology in so many ways. And I know from a therapeutic standpoint, you're told not to, you shouldn't be touching your patients or clients. You shouldn't give personal information away. But then you're never really fully engaging, which is, and you'll never get the best from people, is what in the same, in a different field, but with very much a crossover.
yeah.
There's a huge blurry line between sort of space that people shift in and out of these things. Therapy's a negotiation,
Yeah.
very much so.
And it's a different thing, because I did a lecture for UCL, and it was an online one during COVID, and there were quite a few people from from different specialists. There was counsellors there,
Yeah,
psychologists, psychiatrists. Just how do you fix somebody in 4 hours on a bridge, yet we can't get through to them in 4 months through therapy?
yeah,
It's like, well, and you don't say I just blag it, but there's a different amount of
yeah,
hashtag blagging it. There's a
yeah,
different pressure, isn't there? When the pressure's on, all of the models and the methods that we use are stress tested or pressure tested. They work if you know how to use them.
Yes.
I can send you a book, I know, or somebody a book and say, do this. This is how to win conversations. You can read it and go, yeah, I know the model, but you've got to have done it, made
Yes.
mistakes, had the criticism, the feedback, the reviews, then developed and enhanced your techniques, and then test and adjust, and you'll get a good shot. It's like when you're firing on a range, you think you're in the right position and you follow the marksmanship principles.
Yeah.
Your first shot is off. So you test and adjust, don't you? You move,
Absolutely.
you move one leg, you move you change a little bit. And then when there's no effort, you're thinking, I did that through experience of that was wrong, off target, off target, I just did this little tweak and we're on. I'll do that in future. And that's what we're doing here. And I think, book learned versus experience, and we've got all the empirical data about what we do and why it works and when it's done. So police negotiators, you go to an incident and then it goes on the National Negotiators database. So once you come back, you put in the subject that you went to deal with. You put in all about the communications methods that worked, what didn't work, whether the behavioral change staircase model worked, how did you influence and persuade them? Was there anything specific about their history? What were their hooks and levers? What was it that influenced them? Were there any intermediaries that you could use? All this goes onto a national database. So John Smith in my force area with a certain date of birth, if he goes on holiday somewhere else in the UK and is then in crisis and the police get called, the negotiators can go onto the national database, type in John Smith, date of birth, 1st of January, whatever year, and they will see, is this the subject that you're talking about? Well, yes. Reference number, and you click into the log and you can see exactly what the last negotiators did to win that person over.
Yeah.
So you go there with intelligence that wouldn't be on every available system because forces don't share that information as much as maybe they could. But the database is a national one, so you can see it and go, oh, I won't use all of that, but it's in my pocket. And then when you say, well, you've dealt with negotiators before, haven't you, John? What? How do you know that? Well, 3 months ago, from what I understand, this, and they go, oh, and you dealt with this guy, the negotiator? That's what I do. And if they had rapport with that person, we're already up this behavioral staircase model because, you do what they do. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's written down here, correct me if I'm wrong. He said that there was a big event around, this time of year involving a certain member of your family. Would you like to tell me more about that? And then they could open up because you've earned the right, because you've just given that background, and it's just trying to learn things. But I think when we're dealing with things, there's a, dynamic incidents, you go to a counsellor, we're on the edge of a bridge, the pressure's on, the adrenaline's high, you've got an audience of people and you're thinking, I've got to save you. There's all these different pressures, isn't there?
Yes.
Whereas if you go to a counselling session, it's in a controlled environment. It's a different level of pressure for both the counsellor or the therapist and the client. There's different models that they can use.
Yep.
It's all very controlled. It can go off, and I know it can go up, it can go down, but it's a different pressure.
There's less pressure because somebody's they're either not going to engage or click with you, and they're going to walk out.
Yeah.
Rather than step off.
I had counselling after an incident of mine back in 2005, and counselling didn't work for me because it was regress. Every time I went, it took me back.
Yes.
I know I've dealt with that. And it was, I know things have moved on, and this was 2005. but I wasn't particularly open to it, which was probably one of the problems. I
Yeah.
was always fighting. I was fighting the help, if you like, because I didn't want to admit that I needed help. But
Yeah.
what didn't work for me was that it was very regressive in that but I've dealt with that. No, you can't deal with that. But I have dealt with that bit. No, no, let's open that up and talk. I don't want to, I've dealt with that.
Yeah.
No, and I don't know whether it'll come back and bite me at some point, but I found, and I've spoken to quite a few people, they've stopped counselling and therapy because of that, for that reason.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not, I'm not saying, because different things work for different people, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, and I would never say it's a bad thing at all. Any help is brilliant. But for me, the way it was done for me, I was no, because it was probably at the wrong time. But
That's the thing.
yeah, it was the timing of it, and it was my mental state at the time as I was fighting, saying, no, no, I know better. But even now, I've learned, I think sharing with a trusted audience or non-judgmental people
Mm.
with a shared lived experience is probably better for me. That it, I didn't find counselling worked for me at all. In fact, it made me a bit more not aggressive, resistant to help. I was like, no, no, no. I know my body. I know my mind,
Yeah.
and I think quite a lot of people have been through that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm counseling was it never worked for me either, to be fair. But it's horses for courses, and it's
yeah,
to overcome something traumatic that there's not one thing that works and fixes everything. There's a series of things that need to be in place, and the order of those is different for different people. And counseling, and this is where I have a gripe with the system, is there's only three treatments. There's CBT, there's counseling, and there's EMDR. And if it doesn't work for you and it makes you worse, which counseling for a lot of people does if it's delivered too soon, re-traumatizes people,
yeah,
which has the complete polar effect that they're looking for. And the person is then blamed for being treatment resistant or belligerent or not engaging.
yeah,
Um, there are other ways of resolving these issues without re-traumatizing people.
yeah. And I think things have changed a lot since
Yes.
then. Same for you. It just didn't work for me, and I think it was too soon.
Yes.
It wasn't forced. It was I think people being very, very helpful, and it was for the best intentions. But at that time, I had so much
Yes.
going on. I was involved in a head-on fatal police crash, and it was entirely my fault. And the other driver died, but I had significant injuries. But then for me, as having never done anything wrong, it was, arrested 13 months later. It was Crown Court cases, facing these things. And it was that for me, trying to fix me with what they were trying to fix, I couldn't focus on because I was thinking of the future and the negative outcomes for the future for
Yeah.
something I'd done, and the guilt that I had to live, and to this day live with, of what my actions and what the results were, and the fact that I took someone's life in an accident is something I'll never get over. But I used that in my. That's why I became a negotiator, because
Yeah.
I want to give something back, and I don't think, and for me, this is I'm not religious at all, but for me, this is penance. It was, I've done something and there's nothing I can do to change what happened there and then.
Yeah.
And if I go back and change it, of course I would. But I learn about myself and other people through that sort of horrible journey, if you like,
Hmm.
of recovery and the sort of criticism, the press and everything, but then you spinning it to use it for positive
Yes.
outcomes for other people. In that I've been through something and I was at the lowest of the low, but then saying to somebody who's on when they say, "What do you know?" It's the timing and the use of my own traumatic experience to then say that there is hope. You know, it's that offering hope to people that haven't got any life, to people that don't want it. It's that there is a way out.
Yes.
Help me guide you through it. And then when somebody says, "Well, how did you, if you were in my position, what would you do?" I'm thinking, gotcha.
Yeah.
Because that's them looking for help. And that's where you've got to be really, really careful with how you do it. Because if it's forced and it's too early, there's that resistance.
Yeah.
It's that drip feeding of, well, do this and we could try this, not you should do, I'm telling you what to do. Yeah. We could try this. And if it's we, it becomes like that person. It's like a team journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll be with you and would you let me help you? But that's a critical time. It's like we said, about when you think you're winning, that's when you're going to lose. For us as negotiators, the most vulnerable time is when you think you've won. So if somebody's stepping over a barrier and you switch off, that's when their emotions are going, hold on, what am I doing here? And if I stop talking, if I'm not the white noise of that, even if they're not listening, they can hear a voice. It's a distraction. And I'm just gesturing, come on, hand out. It doesn't always work, but it's better than being quiet because that leaves people with their thoughts.
Yeah.
And that step up onto a barrier is where they're going, hold on, one more step that way, and this goes against my plan. The easiest option is for me to do what I came here to do.
Yes.
And if you switch off at that point, that's when you're going to lose somebody.
Yeah.
And that's where the pressure is. And I think that's what we teach on the negotiator courses is just be, if somebody says, be quiet, leave me to my thoughts, don't, because that's focusing on their intention.
Yes.
Just be that annoying voice in the background, because if they turn around and say, shut up, I can't say it will always fix it, but it's with experience, you get this thin slicing, doesn't it, of if I stop talking, this isn't going to end well. So and it's that thing, and all of our interactions, everything's recorded as well as negotiators. It's whether it's on body worn or whether it's audio, but you've got all of the support people around you. Nowadays, there's probably CCTV cameras on you. There could be drone. Everything you do and say, the easiest thing to do is to scrutinize or pick on somebody else and coulda, shoulda, woulda. The shudder meetings that everybody has. You should have done this. You should have done that. So it's easy for you to say the 9 o'clock jury, but when the pressure's on, it's down to your training and experience, isn't it, about your judgment of what's going to save somebody?
Yeah.
But we don't have magic words. And unfortunately, some people just want an audience. And
yes,
you see it and you hear about it where a lot of people go and they'll take their life, they'll end their life, they'll come without anybody there, or some people will just say, oh, I'm glad you're here, tell this person this was their fault, and they've gone. And it's terrible, when there's footage from around the world of it happening, isn't there?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. And that's for us, Kathy McDonald, she runs the Art of Communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. It's the art of communication is what we try and teach negotiators. How to communicate with people in dynamic or kinetic incidents or crisis incidents. It's different levels of pressure using different models, but it comes with experience, doesn't it?
It does, and it's the only way. It's the only way.
Yeah.
As you said, you can read all the books and you can watch all the movies, and unless you put it into practice in real life, and test and adjust.
I've seen, and I work with some amazing people. And you know, and you just see somebody, you think, "Oh, man," and they're just so good at what they do. You think, oh,
Mm.
I want to be like that. And because they can win people over, anybody over, it seems. Um, and it's people that do a lot of networking, that aren't very policey. They're in touch with their own emotions, that, you know, they're not scripted. They don't hold a line back for when they're sort of, oh, when I'm the lead negotiator, I'm going to say this, because it can take the negotiation backwards. It's
Yeah.
people that share their, like in a team, because your work is in teams on negotiating jobs. It's people that, you know, the outcome is to save that person, isn't it? So it's everybody. If you
Absolutely.
can help them, then share all the information you've got. Don't hold it back to say, oh, I said this line and it saved them. They came back for me. Yeah, but if you'd have told the other one, they'd have done it earlier. You know, it's um, but I just think, you know, having worked with some of the people I've done, it's been an absolute honor, you know, when you see people that do what they do, but it's not always specialist negotiators. It's just members of the public. I've seen some amazing people do
Yeah.
some amazing things. I've seen uh, beat cops, detectives, traffic officers, PCSOs do some fantastic work. And you come back, and we introduced in our force, you know, little challenge coins.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the aim was, if you weren't a trained negotiator, if you've done something which has saved somebody, it was instant reward. So within a few days, the aim was for a member of the command team in the police and a member of the negotiating team to give you an award and a challenge coin for doing something above and beyond what you're trained to
Yeah. Of
do, because everybody likes a pat on the back. And it's that
course.
instant reward. Yet most police forces will have a annual award ceremony. So by the time there's an award or a commendation, not everybody gets recognised or gets an award. But I think if you save a life, it's quite a good thing. You
I
know,
think
there's
it's,
that
yeah, people should be recognized for things like that.
instant. You know, there's that book, Turn the Ship Around.
Yeah.
You know, when you see about the guy that saves everybody on the submarine, and the captain, I think within an hour, has given him an award because he saved everybody on the submarine. And can you imagine, for the duration of that trip,
Yeah.
how elated that person felt
Yeah.
of, and everyone patting you on the back, you know, wouldn't ever have to buy a drink at all,
No. No.
because instant reward and recognition of valued service. So I think, you know, it's a good thing to do, but you don't give awards for everything, you know. But I think when people do something exceptional, I think it should be done quicker. Um, you know, because it makes that, and if you say to, you know, we've got a vacancy coming up, we want you to go for the job. We've got a few people who've just passed courses who've been on deployments and have said, I want to do what that team did.
Yeah.
And again, now, because we've dropped, you know, in my old force, they've dropped the rank requirement. Um,
Yes. That's a great thing.
as long as you've passed the selection process and you go through a scenario and an interview panel, and then there's quite a lot of questions, and it's trying to find out for you as a person, because it's a big commitment as well.
Hmm.
You're on call 24 hours, you know, 24 hours a day. When I first joined our team, it was 24 hours a day, 7 day solid block by yourself. So you'd be on nights, and then you'd get a call at 8 in the morning, and you've been in bed for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, and you're getting picked up by a car, and that's dangerous, because imagine if the outcome was bad and there was an inquest. How much sleep did you have?
Yeah. None.
30 minutes. So how capable would you think you are? So the fact that we changed, and, you know, the national model doesn't allow that. You know, it's people are on their game, and it's recorded and everything, and because of
Yes.
that transparency, um, and you see the outcomes, and it's, you know, it was the one thing I absolutely loved, and, you know, and it works with coaching and mentoring that I do, but also I do some sports coaching for football team as well. And everything I've learned in negotiating, I try and learn, or try and put into practice whenever I can.
Yeah.
But no, I've loved the journey, and I'm been very fortunate that the outcomes have been positive for me. I've had hundreds of deployments, but some people, I know that their first deployment has ended in a fatality, no fault of their own.
Yeah,
And
it's luck of the draw, isn't it? Unfortunately.
But it's just a really an amazing opportunity to have.
Mm.
It's a privilege to be in a position to save someone's life and be given the time to do it as a specialist, where you turn your radio off. I think I'd said in take one again. Whenever I do face-to-face negotiations, I take the watch off because it's a distraction for me. And it reassures people when I say I'm taking my watch off because I'm a cop. I've got a habit of looking at my watch. And if I say, I've got all the time in the world for you. Yeah, milk, 2 sugars, thanks. Yeah, what were you saying again? It's completely wrong, isn't it? It's just, but if I take my watch off, why are you doing that? I take my watch off because I've got a habit of looking at it. I don't want you to think I've got anywhere else to be. It's just me and you. There's nothing more important than you. Make people feel valued.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, you're different. You get me. And you think, here we go. And then it's just that I learned that from somebody else. I always carried cigarettes with me. I don't smoke, never have. But I always carried cigarettes, filters, tobacco, papers, everything, and 2 lighters, one that never worked and one that always worked. And if I needed a bit of persuasion, then I was the person. You can become like a fixer at times, don't you?
Yeah.
As they could do it, and it was approved, then I would offer them the cigarettes and do things. But when the pressure was on and I've given someone a cigarette, sometimes I'd get the lighter out that I know doesn't work, because I do that and I panic when it doesn't work. And I go, oh, I made a mistake. And sometimes that, a lot of the time I'll get a smile and I'll get the other lighter out and it works, because that's made me fallible, human. I make mistakes. I'm really sorry. And that person will go, all right. So I knew it. I should have done this. I should have used a Zippo. I should have used this windproof one. And then if you get that little smirk, again, it changes that perspective, doesn't it? It changes their mental place, if you like, their state of,
Yes.
And then, you just use that. But again, it's tactical. I've been to jobs where I've deliberately made mistakes when dealing with somebody. And then there was somebody from a different, from the fire service, who just, when I came back in, he was like, are you stupid? Did you not hear? Even I heard him say that. I said, it was deliberate. So that, you do your part, I'll do mine. But I deliberately said that because he then added more detail. That was the intention, and he was like, oh, sorry. But, you have to make, sometimes you'll make some deliberate mistakes, or you'll get things wrong. But that comes with experience, doesn't it? And I'm not talking about the Mel Gibson Lethal Weapon 1 handcuffing yourself to, come on then, let's go. It's nothing like that at all. It's the timing and placement of your responses, and how you manage it. And when because people will shadow experienced negotiators once they've passed the course, even though they're qualified and they can technically go out by their own. You shadow someone because it gives you that confidence, that experience, and then you'll go as the lead negotiator, and you've got a really experienced number 2 with you who's coaching you through it, because there's a difference between scenarios and the real thing.
Yes.
It's that, but the CPD, since I've joined, I joined our cadre, and the amount of additional training every year is fantastic.
Yeah.
Just keep people tuned up, and the fact that if you don't deploy for a certain amount of time, then you have to go through further training before you're reaccredited. It's a lot more professional. you know, and it's like firearms officers. If you don't pass your shoots, then you can't deploy.
Yeah.
If you pass your fitness test, you can't do this. If you don't, you know, and it's good to have the standards, because if you don't meet the standards, then you can't do your job. You've got to be at the top of your game to do it. So, but no, you know, I really enjoy it, and now having a business where we can teach people conversation skills, conversation management, kidnap awareness, kidnap ransom training, uh, kidnap management training, but negotiation techniques, whether it's for government at government level, for, you know, national, international police forces overseas, assisting with CPD
Yeah.
overseas, but just coming in and with, you know, we do a lot of work, you know, all of the companies around, but our aim is to be the supplier of choice for tactical and corporate negotiation outcomes, really,
Yeah.
especially we've got a lot of experience, and everybody that I work with on, you know, in the teams, and we've got access to, are highly experienced instructors. So it's not my mate Dave who's watched a couple of films and some YouTube clips and read a book.
Yeah.
At a level of it's instructors who then teach other instructors as well. So it's a different level.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it for years, but still open to the fact that I'll learn every day. You know, I'll learn off different people, and it's offering something different into the corporate or private sector, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got methods and models that are tested under extreme pressures, and if they work for us and they'll certainly work for business.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it's making memorable days, you know, rather than leadership training course where you go from, let's go from point A to B using the ropes, the barrel, and the plank.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, we offer immersive training days where, you know, people are kidnapped, lots of, you know, different and memorable training experiences and environments. And, you know, we're out there, we've got access to all of these and expanding, really. And I haven't even advertised yet. And we're moving on, you know, and the opportunities are there, and it's brilliant. So I'm absolutely loving my journey beyond the police. You know, it's really good.
Well, there's always more beyond, isn't there? Just thinking about kind of looping back. So, where do you think, from your experiences through childhood, because you went to boarding school as well,
Yeah.
do you think that had any influence on you in terms of ultimately? I know there was a kind of a tipping point with your accident that led you in the direction of negotiation. But do you think there's anything from that experience through childhood that kind of maybe unconsciously steered you in that direction as an interest?
Yeah, I think, and it's weird, you know, I was in boarding school from the age of 11 because of my dad's postings, you know, and it was
Yeah.
the educational stability that the military boarding schools offered.
Yeah.
My dad was posted from Germany to Belgium, so my mum went there. Me and my brother stayed in our school in Rhine-Darlen, and then later on I went to a boarding school in Kent. But I think Jeremy Clarkson had said it in one of his books, that when he took his daughter to boarding school, he says, if nothing else, he says, I know that he was a boarder as well. He says, boarders are generally good in a room
Yeah.
because you are left alone quite early on with
Yeah.
just, not Animal Farm-esque, but, you know, you're in with a group of people in exactly the same situation. And you've not got, yes, your parents are available back then by letter or by
Yeah.
your allocated phone call time on the old, you remember the old
Yes.
phones, whatever, you know, when it was, that was how it was. You
Yeah.
know, there were no emails, there was no FaceTime, there was, you know, no
No.
instant messaging. It was handwritten letters or timed phone calls when you could put a call out, or, you know, a scheduled call from your parents to dial in. And I think it was there at that point when you start looking at people of what kind of people can I get along with, and I'm a bit alone. How can I get in with those?
Yeah.
And I think it's there where you start learning your sort of people skills,
Hmm.
and you've got to build rapport quickly. And I think it's not just as a boarder, but when you go to any new school,
Yes.
remember when you go from primary as it was into secondary school, and all of the local schools combine, and you're like, oh man. And you go and you've got to try and get on with people quite quickly
Yep.
to establish yourself as not being the vulnerable one, the too cocky. You've got to get in with the right crowd, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I think it was then I noticed that, because you are alone a lot of the time, aren't you?
Yes.
Because you're quite vulnerable. You've come from a secure family unit to suddenly being in a group of young, for me, it was first year in secondary school. So aged 11, chucked in with people from all over Germany, all vying for different sort of a different status, or, there was a pecking order within the
Yeah.
year, and within the boarding house itself. And then you're like, but then what I did like was boarders, it was the biggest family in our school. Because if you as a first year or any other first years got picked on, a sixth form boarder would then it was, he's one of us. And it was
Yeah.
that you belong, that's the shared lived experience, is that they're one of us.
Yes.
They can't go to their parents so we'll look after them. It was their big brothers and sisters sort of thing. And I spoke to a few people that envied our position as boarders because of how well we were treated. I think there was a proper bond. And then
Yeah.
when I joined the army at 16 and a half, or just before I was 17, when other people were homesick, I went to Bovington Camp, the old Junior Leaders Regiment Royal Armoured Corps. So it was the Army Air Corps, all the cavalry units, all the tank regiments. It was the Pay Corps, the RMP, the Army Air Corps, um, and the Army Junior School of Music were there.
Okay.
But so everybody was, there were a lot of people that were homesick, and you could tell at night there was very quiet people. There was sniffles and everything early on of people being homesick. Well, I'd done that.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, I could concentrate on other things. And then when I joined the police, it was just the norm of, I think I can not infiltrate that group. I can do that, and some of the surveillance work and informant handling and all that is the confidence of being able to go in and speak to anybody about anything.
Yep.
Then went on to negotiating with, I've got the confidence to go and speak to people about things because you have that. And I do think that that for me helped mold me as a person.
Yeah.
But it's also got its negatives in that I missed out on an awful lot of family life. That my son, for example, now is 15 and has got things that I didn't have. He's at home every night chatting, whereas I missed out on that part of it.
Yes.
But yeah, but I don't, you can't experience or miss something that you haven't had, really. So I think for me, boarding school at the time, I didn't really like it. I was, as the first couple of months was quite bad, I found, because I went in at the end of, I think it was, I'd done a term or half a term as a day pupil, and then my dad got posted. So
Right.
I went in as a boarder into a room where people had known each other and lived in each other's pockets effectively for a term or half a term. So it was that extra bit of, oh man, I don't know these guys. And then yeah, so I think for me it was a good thing, but if my kids did it, I'd miss them madly. So I'm glad that they're not, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Similar scenario this end of the.
But that was a weird tangent.
Yeah, well, it was just, I kind of I wondered because I think there's, we've had similar childhoods in that respect, and I think that had an influence on me and my capabilities and ending up doing the human side. Um, as it was described to me, persuading people to do things that they didn't even know that they didn't want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's like, with a informant handling.
Yeah.
When you think you can get people to tell you things about other family members
Mm.
that can potentially get those family members sent to prison, and they didn't even feel bad about doing it
Yeah.
because you've taken the time to build up these relationships. And it's, again, it's that skill, it's that intelligence, isn't it? It's about how to do it, because you've got to do the cold calls as well.
Yeah.
When you think about setting up OPs in houses, making a cold call to someone about, can we set up an OP in your house? What? This is, we want it. Your back window would be perfect for us. Can we do this? And don't tell anyone. To then have people come in and you take over part of their house, and then they're feeding you and making you meals and including you in family conversations. And
Yeah.
you think, this is weird. But there's people that can do it and there's people that can't.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of the things with surveillance about how you can ping somebody who's doing it because they don't change their shoes or their watch. There's a lot of cops that go on their courses when I did my surveillance course, and you could just look at somebody and tell how they walked, how they spoke, how they presented, what they did for a job.
Yeah.
And then different, but there are some people that you can just go, what the, I'd never have believed it. And some of the undercover officers and that, you would never believe they had anything to do with the police. Some people's skill levels of and sort of chameleon nature is fascinating, isn't it? You're like,
Yes.
I am genuinely in awe of what you've just done. That's brilliant. But having done the surveillance, the crop work, and informant hunting, and then going on to this, and you think it's all about people watching, isn't it? And
Yes,
then
it is. Yeah.
and then the reward of actually having a direct influence on the positive outcome in someone's life is something amazing to experience, really. But it's a good thing. But I think for me, my upbringing probably led me to this. But I think the crash that I was involved in, and the subsequent appearances, and learning from my own experience of bottling things up and not telling people, was actually close to a downfall for me, really. And then
Yeah.
opening up and then realizing the benefits of disclosure to non-judgmental people, and then thinking, oh, and now using that as examples to other people, because I wouldn't wish it on anyone to go through what I'd been through at all.
No.
Not while I was injured, and I was in hospital and had quite a few operations, but it was the mental issue of it, the
Yeah.
grief, the guilt, the ongoing guilt, the trauma, and doing that, and I think soon as they said there are this many symptoms of PTSD and you've got all bar one of them, was like, oh. But as soon as somebody labelled it, I could then look it up, and that really helped me, because they put a label on it. I researched it and then worked my own way through it.
Yeah.
Because the counselling, I think, was probably too early, and it didn't work for me because there was a lot of pushback from me, and
Yeah.
it was too aggressive at that time. Whereas now, I think sharing those thoughts with other people and being so honest, as actually a few people have said the same back to me. I've never told anyone this, and they've done it, and
Yeah.
it's bizarre. So I think there's a friend of mine who'd been through something, and only when I'd seen his presentation about his own journey, and I opened up about what happened to him
Yeah.
after his presentation, and then from then I realised, oh, this works, and then have used it ever since. But that was a long time after the crash. We're talking over 15 years since the crash for me to until I actually told somebody
Mm-hmm.
properly. But it is, and you never know what damage it's done to you or how it's affected you, do you?
Not
But
really. Well, it's all retrospective, isn't it?
yeah,
it's when we only ever do look, we don't get up in the morning and think how many decisions can I make to screw myself up today. That's yeah, fortunately that's not how we work, but sometimes that's what we do.
I think I had fantastic treatment from the police. You've got there's a place called Flint House, which is a rehabilitation centre. So there's also one, I think it's in Harrogate for the police. But they went there, and I was under the care of the nurses straight away. And the physios there were hands on. It was all proper, getting rid of scar tissue, and they were balancing me and everything, and just there was not counselling so much, but it was proper care. And you're with people, and you think you're going through something rough. And I was like, oh, you feel sorry for yourself. And then I saw other people's injuries and I was like, oh, I better be quiet here. Because you look at what some people have gone through and you're like, I've got nothing to whinge about at all.
Yeah.
Because look at that girl, and speaking to people. And I think, again, because so many people have been through things there, learning from people that have been through similar experiences. And I had three trips there in all, and I think it's 3 10-day trips. So you pay, it comes out of your pay. You've got to sign up to it to have a sort of monthly deductions. But the care I had there got me through it without doubt. Absolutely phenomenal. I was told by my surgeon I would never run and I'd be walking with a bad limp. And I went to Flint House 3 times and started triathlons and ultra running after that.
Okay.
So when I went back to see the surgeon, he was like, "Oh, good, red rag to a bull," and he just said, he'd said he'd done it, knowing that I would do the opposite, because he said I could tell from speaking to you, and he just said it's a delicate thing for him to do, he just said, but you seemed the type that would go against everything I said.
Yeah.
So, but I'm thankful for them, but the service and everything I had from Flint House, the police rehab centre down in Goring-on-Thames, was unbelievable. And I came back and I was like an ambassador for them, if you like. I was getting everybody said, you need to sign up because it covers you for life.
Yeah. Okay.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic. It's hands-on. They've got everything there. The hydrotherapy pools, there's the massaging, there's the intense physio, counselling, group sessions. It's just epic. And I've still got friends there that I met back in 2006 when I first went, and and it was just amazing service for
Yeah.
less. I say when I started, it was less than the cost of a pint per month, whereas now obviously pints are expensive and the contributions have gone up, but it's still
Yes.
an amazing service for what you pay, really. But yeah.
What's key things for you in terms of your life? What are the things that kind of the real resilience building moments in your life, looking back on it? We never realize them at the time, but can you kind of think of, are there key points that really stand out for you that actually those are the real learning moments that help me grow stronger?
Yeah, I think looking back at it, I think the separation from your family at such a young age
Yeah.
you have to be strong enough, and it's a proper emotional roller coaster then as a kid.
Yeah.
And I think that, and then the confidence it gives you, and then, because you think, well, I'm quite used to being independent from a young age. So there was that without really realizing it, and then joining the army and realizing that, this is good. But I think it was the death of a few friends
Yeah.
as well. And in the police, people who've taken their own life, or people who've died on duty or just leaving duty, of And it's those eye-opener, don't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
Life is short and it can go at any time. So make the most of every day. And it's realizing that, a close friend of mine, he died last year, and we shared an office together. We were PCs together. We were he was on my shift when I was a sergeant. He was the traffic cop on my shift. Then we were sergeants together. Then I was an inspector, and he got promoted, and we shared an office for 3 years in Aberystwyth. And then last year, there was a call to a crash, so I went as the sort of ground commander. I went with a traffic sergeant who was going to be the incident commander for the sort of traffic investigation. And when it came out 10 minutes into the blue light run that it was my friend and colleague, just what? And it was that. And then going there and seeing, you're not meant to see certain things, are you? And
Yeah.
it was that flipping it. And it was that we shouldn't need these moments to make us realize that life is precious. But unfortunately, we all become a bit complacent, don't we? Yeah, I'll do that, man. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow may never come. And it was that real, I'm just going to do everything I can. But that was a big change for me. That was last June. But I think that the biggest thing for me was the crash that I was involved in. And then what I went through. And then everything that I've done since then. And I've made mistakes in the way that I've dealt with my own well-being, if you like. But you don't know their mistakes until you make them, do you?
No. And you're in
At the
fine
time,
company.
yeah. And I didn't realize they were mistakes until later on.
Yeah.
When I look back and you go, hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yes.
But I think for me, the biggest thing for resilience was experience of a crash, being trapped in a car, and then having taken somebody's life. It's that guilt and trying to repay that, but then also look after yourself, and using my own experiences to try and help other people not make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
And mental toughness. I think a lot of it is stubbornness as well, isn't it? You think, I'm not going to do that. Whereas I think if the same situation had happened now, I'd have had a lot more care. And if I know what I know now, I'd have dealt with myself and looked after myself a lot better.
Yeah.
But I still think there's the stubbornness and I didn't want to admit a weakness at all. And then people saying you're really resilient, because I came back to work after all the operations. I came back to work on those auxiliary crutches, 4 months
Yes.
after the crash. And physically, there was a lot going on, but I think underneath was the mental.
Yeah.
That just didn't stop. And I was pushing against the help being offered, counselling. No, because I was worried about the future and worried about what I'd done and what the outcome was going to be for my family. Not me at all. And it's the weird thing. It was all about those around me.
Yeah.
It was not embarrassment. It was the shame of what I'd done, because I'd never done anything wrong ever. And then, I don't think I'd even had a parking ticket. I went in the military, I got charged quite a lot. When you think about, I think at one point I had my very own Chelsea pensioner. If that's where the money went, I think I've paid for somebody's entire stay at Chelsea. but it was just, I was always getting caught. I was always getting stuff wrong. But when you look back at it, and you think, oh man, if only I'd have done this, that, and the other. But now, as a negotiator, when people are in crisis because they've done similar things to the mistakes that I made, and you offer them this hope of, no, there is a way out. This is what I did. and this is what we can do to help you. I think that's where, having had the unfortunate benefit of that experience, I can help other people. So
Yes.
yeah, but what I've been through compared to some people that usually think it's down, it's down there.
Yeah.
But in my own life and my experience, it's relative to me, isn't it?
Always.
And I wouldn't want to take anything away from people that have seen the things that they've seen in combat, in anything, or family situations or friends. It's what I've experienced that I can comment on, and I would never say, you'd never try and top trump anybody else, because it's relative, isn't it? I just think what I did, it made me stronger, but I made a load of mistakes. And if I can stop people making those mistakes, then I will. It's just offering help where I can, really.
Well, you've certainly done that in your career. Bloody
Yeah.
hell.
But you've done it. I've not been kidnapped as many times as you, though. So,
No, you're smarter than I am. That's why.
and as we said in the sort of the chat, this was before take one. Security. Are you sure you should have been security? You were pretty shocked.
Yeah, I was obviously shit at my job. Yeah.
But I say you were unarmed, weren't you? You kept facing something that's completely.
Well, it's kind of a compelling argument to do as you're told.
Yeah. It's fascinating. When you did your podcast back then, and I remember listening to yours, thinking, I'd love to speak to this guy. And then when I saw you on Twitter, and then we got in contact, I was chuffed when you initiated contact. You phoned me, didn't you?
Yeah.
Really. So, and we've been virtual pals ever since, I think.
Yes, I know. We'll have to get orchestrate a catch up at some point. It nearly happened when I was down at my mates in Ebervale, but it just never happened.
Yeah, because people say, "Oh, you live in Wales. Can you just pop down?" Yeah,
Yeah.
because Wales is tiny.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't take long to get from north to south at all, does it? On
Yeah,
those delightful roads.
yeah. But it's going to have to happen in the near future, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. We definitely have to get together. Yes, just make it happen.
But no, I just hope that somebody's watched and maybe interested a little bit to two people just whinging on and rattling on about themselves.
Well, no, I mean, and we'll have all your details for ways people can get in touch with you to and to have a look at what you do, and as I say, yeah, get in touch for a conversation, because I hope that this is another avenue that produces a few leads for you. That would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's
So, any companies out there, anybody in companies watching this, and you need some negotiation training, then give Ash a shout.
yeah. We do the guest. I do guest speaking as well, and that's
Yes.
love doing that. You do it. Very similar actually. We do the training, the guest speaking, and also the coaching.
Yeah.
It's bizarre how similar. But I haven't written a book. But I said mine would just be kind and don't be a dick on the front, and that would be page one and also the end.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a clue where to start. It would just be basically just ignore everything I said. Just be kind and don't be a
Don't
dick.
be a dick. No, you need that as you definitely need a patch for that. Badges and stickers.
Yeah. If only there was one. I still got a huge one. The alliness saves lives.
Yeah.
In fact, that used to be on the back of my body armor for negotiating.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, because it always people like that alliness. No, just alliness. What's that? I said, right, here's the website. Just look up, and it's just trying to explain sort of military chic and doing everything against what people said to do. You go, what does ally mean? Ugh. So no, it was interesting times, and like I say, the journey we're on at the moment is fantastic. Loving it,
Yeah.
loving every moment of it, and the getting into doing the corporate stuff really good, and always open for more people if they want training. on enhanced comms techniques, leadership training, but team building with, yeah,
with a
memorable
difference.
team building. Yeah. But a lot of it is just the negotiation that we teach nationally.
Yeah.
The students that come over on, from international. It's just transferring those skills into the corporate sector and improving people's sales techniques through all of that. But yeah, look us up.
Yeah, magic. Well, all your details will be splattered all over the internet from a different perspective, from a different avenue this time. So
Oh,
we
right.
should
Well,
do what we
thank
can.
you very much for having me, and I hope to
No,
hear
it's
from
been
you.
loved take one and take two and the preamble.
Take one was much better.
No, it's really cool. Yes, we shall no doubt we'll have a chat again
All
at
right.
some point on in this format. But yeah, we'll we definitely need to sort out a face to face.
Nice one.
Yeah, grab a spot of lunch somewhere.
Yeah, because you're only up in Scotland, I'm only in Wales. It's
Yeah. It's it's
oh,
just about 10 hours or something. I think 11 hours.
yeah. All
Nothing
right.
much. All right, mate. Thanks a lot.